The bell rings. The round is over. The referee steps between the two heavyweights to separate them. But a 230-pound brawler named Francois Botha decides the rules of the sport no longer apply. Frustrated, outclassed, and desperate, Botha throws a vicious, illegal late punch right into the face of Mike Tyson. In a fraction of a second, the ring explodes into a riot. Security guards swarm the canvas. Cornermen clash. The crowd erupts into a frenzy as the arena holds its breath. Pure chaos takes over, because Botha didn't just throw a cheap shot at an ordinary athlete. He had just sparked a fire inside a man whose entire existence was fueled by violence. A man you do not cross. A man who punished disrespect with life-altering consequences. Botha thought he was making a tough guy statement. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. There was a time when standing across from Mike Tyson wasn't a competitive sport. It was a game of human survival. People didn't just lose to him, they broke. They lost a piece of their soul. The illusion of dominance is an intoxicating drug. It breeds arrogance. Soon, challengers began to confuse Tyson's quiet, menacing patience with weakness. Fighters started believing their own manufactured hype. They thought they had finally figured out the puzzle. They thought they could rattle him with words. Across the pond, a massive British heavyweight named Bruno thought he had the answer. He didn't just question Tyson's skills, he insulted his humanity. Bruno looked directly into the microphones and called Tyson a disease to boxing.
If Casamada was in his, well, he is in his grave now, and you can see all them amateurs and them terrible people behind him, he would be turning in his grave. And I mean, to have all them people shouting confidence, he must be lacking in something. But I want to knock him out so good into Don King's lap and wipe him off the map, because he's bad for boxing, and his people are bad for boxing.
He promised to erase him from the map. He treated the fight like a moral crusade against a street thug. Meanwhile, American veteran Jesse Ferguson took a different approach. He promised the world he would break Kid Dynamite in the later rounds. He smiled. He dismissed the aura. These men thought they were just hyping up a pay-per-view broadcast. They had no idea they were poking a caged lion, mistaking the steel bars of the media cameras for safety. They expected a traditional boxing match, but they were about to be dragged into a nightmare. Tyson didn't just want to win. He wanted to inflict maximum suffering. When the bell rang for Bruno, the loudmouth who promised a spectacular knockout realized he was trapped in a cage with a predator. There was no clean knockout. It was much worse. Tyson battered him backward. Bruno found himself pinned against the ropes, taking a concussive barrage of hooks and uppercuts until the referee jumped in to stop the beating. Ferguson suffered a similar fate. The man who promised to dominate the later rounds quickly realized he was out of his depth. By the end of the fifth round, a brutal right uppercut sent Ferguson crashing to the canvas. He survived the count, but his spirit was broken. When the sixth round began, Ferguson didn't even try to fight back. Paralyzed by fear, he wrapped his arms around Tyson, clinging to him for dear life. He held on in a state of terror, refusing to let go, until the referee had no choice but to step in and stop a humiliating display. These men were dismantled, stripped of their dignity in front of millions. But what if you didn't talk trash? What if you relied on pure physical toughness? Jose Ribalta was a towering giant who thought his massive frame and legendary iron chin would protect him. His manager mocked Mike, claiming Ribalta was the true power puncher of the division. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. The ring quickly turned into a torture chamber. Ribalta's face wasn't shredded with cuts, but his body was systematically dismantled. Tyson dug in with crushing body shots, forcing Ribalta to absorb over 200 blows. The sheer exhaustion and internal damage drained the life out of the giant. He survived, but he was stripped of his pride. But ego is a dangerous poison, and some men refused to learn from the wreckage left behind. Donovan Razor Ruddock thought he was the new alpha of the heavyweight division. He looked into the cameras and threatened Tyson's life. If he doesn't die, Ruddock grinned to the reporters, it doesn't count. When the fight finally happened, Tyson unleashed an arsenal of violence that left the sold-out arena sitting in stunned silence. The punches didn't just land, they echoed through the rafters. Tyson walked straight through the fire to deliver a relentless, one-sided beating. It was a punishing showcase that forced the referee to step in simply to save Ruddock from permanent ruin. Every rival was destroyed. Every critic was silenced. Every ounce of disrespect was paid back with blood. But nobody fully understood where this insatiable appetite for violence actually came from. Why did Mike Tyson fight as if he was trying to ruin his opponent's lives? To understand the rage, you have to look past the championship belts and step into the shadows of a deeply traumatic past. Because the violence was never about trophies, it was about a ghost. Years earlier, a 14-year-old boy from the slums sat in a dark room, tears streaming down his face as he stared at a flickering television screen. He was watching his idol, an aging, Parkinson's-stricken Muhammad Ali, take a sickening one-sided beating. The boy watched in horror as the legendary Larry Holmes punished a helpless, fading Ali. Holmes didn't just beat Ali, he humiliated him in front of the world, destroying a hero on live television. In that dark room, feeling completely powerless, the crying boy made a blood promise to the universe. He swore that one day he would grow up, hunt Larry Holmes down, and exact a devastating revenge. For 7 long years, that promise festered. It didn't fade. It grew into a dark, consuming obsession. Eventually, the universe gave Mike Tyson his chance. Larry Holmes, seeking one last massive payday, returned to the sport. He completely underestimated the dangerous, volatile weapon standing in his way. Holmes laughed at the idea of this violent kid being a legitimate threat. He told the newspapers that Tyson couldn't even carry his jockstrap. It was supposed to be typical sports trash talk. Instead, he was signing his own execution order. Minutes before the opening bell, a frail, trembling Muhammad Ali walked across the ring, leaned into his young protege, and whispered a simple command: "Get him for me." What followed was not a sporting event. It was an assault. The man who had looked unbeatable against Ali suddenly looked painfully mortal. Holmes was dropped, and then dropped again. Every time he staggered to his feet, he was met with a calculated cruelty. Finally, a crashing right hand detonated perfectly on Holmes's chin, sending the former champion flat onto his back. He wasn't separated from his senses. It was much worse. He was wide awake, forced to process the devastation. Holmes lay there on the canvas, eyes wide, desperately clawing at the bottom rope, trying to pull his heavy, broken body back up to his feet. But his legs were gone. The night was over. The legend was broken. The 14-year-old boy had kept his promise. He had avenged his hero, but that should have been the end of the story, the ultimate redemption arc. Instead, it was the beginning of a downward spiral, because vengeance is an addictive drug, and the craving for it was about to spiral out of control. Tyson realized how intoxicating it felt to punish those who wronged him. He began hunting for disrespect everywhere. No slight was too small. No grudge was too old. Take Carl Williams. Williams had beaten up Tyson in a sparring session when Mike was just a 17-year-old kid. For 6 long years, Williams boasted to anyone who would listen about how he dismantled the prodigy behind closed doors. When they finally met under the arena lights, Tyson didn't want to outbox him. He wanted to steal his soul. It took exactly 1 round to wipe away 6 years of arrogance. A single catastrophic left uppercut separated Williams from his consciousness, humbling the giant in front of the entire world. The fear factor grew to mythical proportions. Andrew Golota, a massive giant who had built a reputation as one of the dirtiest, most ruthless fighters in boxing, thought he was ready. He thrived on intimidation. But the moment he stepped through the ropes and locked eyes with Tyson, something happened. Before a single punch was even thrown, you could see cold, paralyzing terror gripping Golota. The psychological warfare was already over. Under a suffocating pressure, Golota crumbled. Unable to last even 2 rounds, he did the unthinkable. He quit. He fled the ring. He ran toward the locker room as furious fans, feeling completely robbed, rained garbage and drinks down on him. At that point, it looked like nobody on Earth could survive a confrontation with the monster. Which brings us back to the riot, the chaos. The moment Francois Botha decided to throw that late punch after the bell. Once the security was cleared and the referee finally restarted the fight, Botha paid the ultimate price for his disrespect. Tyson walked straight through the lingering chaos, ignored Botha's wild swings, found his chin, and turned the lights out with one picture-perfect right hand. One shot, game over. Every rival was destroyed. Every critic was silenced. Overnight, Mike Tyson had become the undisputed king of intimidation. He built a global empire on a foundation of sheer terror. But living at the peak of human violence comes with a hidden cost. When your entire existence is built on punishing those who doubt you, the war inside your mind never really ends. He had successfully transformed himself from a bullied, crying kid in the ghetto into a walking nightmare that terrified a multi-billion-dollar sport. But a man fueled entirely by rage, ego, and vengeance will eventually run out of enemies. And when the smoke clears, the arena's empty, and there is no one left to punish in the ring, the only target left is yourself. Did Mike Tyson ever truly conquer the demons that lived inside his head? Or did he just feed them until they grew large enough to swallow his entire legacy?